And sometimes the call isn't terminated. I've seen calls hang and stuff, and it's always some weird signaling thing. And hopefully Ola will type in the answer why that happens. But anyway, it does happen. Here's another quick statistic that I've watched, and I have been watching this for 3 years on a lot of these. This happens to be a 17-day, but because we've already got this in the console, the log files of Asterisk, you can whip up a little quick analysis tool in the language of your preference. And again, Acropolis Telecom, you'll see them on the top. They were unreachable some ridiculously small number of times. The unreachable just means that you can't ping, basically, right? Or that it's a SIP hello back or something, options, right? That's the qualify that gives you that. So it's not a big deal. And in a sense, just like human beings, everybody's unreachable sometimes. And that's not necessarily the provider's fault. But this, I like this measurement because it allows you to see the entire, I mean, it's a decent rule of thumb thing, because if you do this over a long time and people are constantly being unreachable, the people on the bottom there who happen to be, it was Asterlink in the States, or VoIP-Jet, who are a very cheap provider, look at the huge difference in the number of times over 17 days that these were unreachable. And very often it's price related, actually, interestingly enough. Okay. Now, back to the user shock factor, and this is a big problem with Asterisk. So you've got all these weird, wacky dial plans, and the user picks up a phone, all she wants to do is make a call. And to hear Allison say, "I'm sorry, that's not a valid extension," when you know it is, or should be, there is absolutely nothing more irritating. Might work the first time, but it won't work more than one time. So again, this is stuff that you people would already know. So as soon as I get on things that I'm trying to go quickly on, for some reason the slides don't work. All of this stuff, this is interesting because it ties in a little bit with what Jay was saying. The way we do dial plans today, all of these tasks, the matching incoming lines to extensions, all of the internal and external numbers, reacting to the current time of day and date, caller ID, least cost routing, multiple routing, IVRs, queues, well, interactive, where was I? Queues, custom dial strategies with in AGIs and stuff, getting data from the outside world with curl, for example, or MySQL. Experimental special services, weather SMS, and I'm going to talk about SMS in a second. Voicemail, obviously. All of this stuff, you got all this humongous stuff in here, and then you're using these conf files. Since Mark's not here, I can say that Mark's reaction was AEL. That's why we did AEL. AEL is I don't see any difference between AEL and the conf file, personally, except that it's a minor syntactic difference. If you like looking at functions, I mean, it's like, what's the difference between go sub and a function anyway at that level? There isn't any, really. So there's an argument here to think about how to extend this world. Let's face it, using Asterisk to do your call routing and save a little money, man, that's grandma. Forget that. There's no money in that, and there never will be anymore. There may have been in the first 2 years of VoIP. Now we got to talk about advanced services. You got to talk about that big P word that everybody wants to talk about, presence. And presence, ironically, Asterisk has not been the greatest presence tool. I'm not really sure where they are today with it, but all my life, and it's a lot longer than most of yours, when I've picked up a telephone in any office, there are a bunch of lights on that phone. They weren't even LEDs in those days. They were little incandescent lamps. And those lamps, somebody would say, Randy, line 3, and the line 3 would be flashing. And hey, this is something that every human being in the Western world can understand. Now you've got to have all kinds of, SIP messages going out. You've got to program it, and does it work, and what version of Asterisk knows how to do that stuff. I'm not even sure that on our box, the 1.2 box, it's possible to say what line, where do you want to call today? Close it. Close that. Well, if I close, we'll never be out of here. What time is it? How are we doing? You don't know. Wait, I'll curl the time. 10:57. Okay, and I'm done in 3 minutes, right? Okay, anyway, again, we don't need necessarily to be talking about the dial status and all that, conforming to standards, planning for expansion. This is not what I really wanted to talk about today. What I wanted to talk about today, mostly, hello, was this idea of presence and modernizing and getting together. This is one of the things that I use a lot. It's SMS because it's free. We use SMS on the Asterisk server. As soon as there's a call, I can get an SMS on missed calls. Voicemail is wonderful, but you don't necessarily need voicemail. You want to know who called, what customer called. So I get an SMS. I do this by not sending the SMS, which would not be free on my fixed line, and many of you don't have fixed lines, but by sending an email to Orange, who's my cell provider, and they send me a free SMS. So I stuff the subject with the information that I want, the time the person called, the name, client name, and so on. Mini database in an SMS. Again, though, what the CDR, you all know this, the CDR lets you, here's what it lets me do, if I can get to the slide quick enough. The most interesting thing for me is looking at the time we spent, we're reevaluating a customer account this year, for example. God, PowerPoint and all that just sucks, doesn't it? Let me get that. Here we go. Client phone time. Do you bill? A lot of you are consultants. Are many of you using a CDR database to bill time? Does anybody do that? Your own time? Yeah? Huh? Do it manually. Yeah. You mean, okay, here's the clock. You punch in?
Same clock for billing, programming time.
Okay. Well, see, most of our time, I should have said, a lot of our consultant time is on the phone. We're not attorneys, but it would be like, you know, you're actually using your time. People will call us even for unrelated matters to them regarding the email. Support for a SNOME lawyer billing code. Yeah, that's a perfect example, because you need that. A lot of people need that. And all of these things, really, my point here, and I think we have about a couple more minutes, was to tell you about the conference and that we really need to get together and exchange ideas on different levels. Instead of listening to the same presentations, as good as they are, you know, hearing about Sangoma hardware is great, but let's keep renewing the interesting stuff. You know, I've heard Jay speak twice, and his presentations were totally different because he's not talking about a particular product. Well, in a way, but not really. He's talking about the theoretical stuff more. And I would like to see a lot more activity in my role as cheerleader. Yesterday, for example, I was able to put the Kevin Fleming presentation, which was very good, by the way, I thought, live on the net. Unfortunately, because we didn't have Wi-Fi from the morning on, I wasn't able to tell anybody that it was going to be live. So at the very end of Kevin's presentation, when he was 40 minutes into it, there were like 6 people watching him live in Berlin, all over the world. When I had Mark Spencer on and was able to drum up a little interest, we had more like 40 or 50 people watching it live. And then it's automatically on that server as video on demand. Now, I would like to propose to you that, and it doesn't matter who does it, I can help you do this, you meaning Stefan or people who are organizing, or if you have a company, whatever, fine. These things are easy to do, but it's not your job to do it. So you're not going to do a good job of it probably if you have somebody in-house do it, unless they already know all this. Put together these presentations, make them live. It gets people involved. If you understand anything about what I say, and believe me, it's got to be hard, because I'm all over the place here. But it's really important to understand what the internet can do for you. People Jay's age and below are the ones that are coming online meaning on market. You're going to be talking to people who have never seen a life where they weren't constantly on their cell phone and getting SMSs and text messages and online and on Presence and on Jabber and on Chat and on IM and on everything else. You need to reach these people. Sure, 999 of 1,000 are maybe not your market, whatever your business is. But the fact is that the one, you know, since you can reach 3 billion people this way, you're going to be reaching people, and you're going to reach them not with, we do this and it costs this and you want to be my customer. That is not the point of the internet at all, as far as what I'm talking about. What? Closing? Every time I close, it takes me